Hi, I'm Mike Tucker. I'm the design director at Bitmap Bureau. Please enjoy the Scene World podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Scene World podcast.
Hi.
With Dennis and me.
And with Jörg.
Exactly. So, in a minute, Jay and I will be talking to Chris Hülsbeck. And this time not about his past, but about the albums he released recently and actually is working on as well. So right before Christmas, we wanted to present that to you. So because you probably had like zillions of interviews with Chris Hülsbeck about his past, and now we thought we'd take the chance to talk about the present and a bit of the future. I mean, as much as he can tell so far. But before that, some news.
It's time for the news.
Exactly. So one of the news is that NotePond, which is one of our graphic artists and web programmer, actually started a new 2D shooting games newsletter.
Wow, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. From his game label Storm Electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So link to that will follow, of course. And also Endstream, which we had for a long while ago as guests in our podcast, announced that they are actually partnering with a Backbone and offering a 30% discount to all Endstream players. Backbone is an attachment for mobile phones to have turn your mobile phone into a game console. You know, it's like a game controller attachment to the mobile phone, and 30% off with the discount thanks to the partnership with Endstream.
Really cool.
Yes, and also news. We mentioned it last time. The Intellivision Amico Home app is now available also for iOS. And well, it got some so coverage in the press because, as we mentioned last time, you really need at least 2 phones or 3 phones, because you need 1 phone for the console emulation and another 2 phones for the Amico controller.
Oh, yeah.
So you actually have to connect 2 or 3 phones with each other to emulate the whole console. Yeah, and
sounds pretty complicated.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, I mean, from what Phil Adam actually mentioned is that's an idea of bringing in revenue. So it is possible with the revenue back then, hopefully in the future, to make the console itself. We will see about that. Anyway, that's the plan so far, you know. Yeah. Well, also, other news is you probably heard about that. The Russian developing studio Fantastic actually shut down because of a game and anticipated MMO, and it turned out that this MMO was actually asset flipping. So what it actually did is it used now I forgot the name of the engine. What's the engine from Epic?
Unity.
No, not Unity.
The Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, exactly, right. Exactly. Now, my brain. So anyway, the game the day before actually released, and it was found out that actually it's using the Unreal Engine assets from the market. So the game is actually, so to speak, fake. And this kind of method is actually called asset flipping.
Yeah.
So you're just using assets that are on the marketplace, buy them, put them together, make a new game with that. I mean, those assets are, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong about it. There are indie studios and so on that use some of them, but of course it's not supposed to be like you buy all of the assets and make your whole game just out of assets. And this by this scamming method is called asset flipping. Yeah. And well, actually what happened is that their publisher in cooperation with Steam actually made it so that even if you played it for longer than 2 hours, you could get a refund for the game. So yeah, it's, well, and it actually turned out that despite the press saying that after the failure the studio shut down, but it turns out the studio just reopened in their old name.
Yeah.
Anyway, just wanted to mention that because that's actually pretty interesting, because that's the first. I mean, never heard of that before. So I thought I would mention it. Yeah, so bad for those people who were hyped about the trailer in 2021 and then got a game that isn't really a real game 2 years later. So on the bright side, some good news. The game The Secret of Monkey Island has been ported to the C64.
Wow.
Yes.
This is an achievement. How does it look?
It looks like a text adventure.
Okay.
Because it uses the D42 adventure maker from out of order.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually using music, still pictures, and the rest of the game is graphics. But anyway, it's a conversion.
Somehow.
A port, and it can be downloaded for free from Commodore Scene database.
All right.
So, yeah.
Cool.
That's it. On the other hand, more releases. Sociable Soccer 24 has been released. And here's the thing, because Sociable Soccer was supposed to release in 2017. It was announced in 2016. We had an interview with John Hare for the podcast at Gamescom 2016. And then the game was a Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter was cancelled before it finished. And then they actually made it early access on Steam. That also got cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
And then John Hare announced that they actually sold the license to a Chinese publisher, so the mobile version would come first.
Okay.
So then, of course, he got quite a shitstorm because people felt betrayed, and it was actually possible to get a refund. I was one of those people that didn't get a refund. I decided to not get a refund. And it happened now that since I didn't get a refund because I didn't ask for one, the new Sociable Soccer 24 has automatically been added to my Steam account. Okay. So now I'm proud owner of the game that was released. Oh, well, that was released in, I think it was October, and was actually promised 6 years ago. I mean, yeah.
That's quite a odyssey.
Yeah. I mean, you know, people are really quickly drawing conclusions like, you'll run away with the money and but I'm one of such people. I really didn't think that John Hare would scam the community. He just went where the money was first, and that was the mobile market, the smartphone market in this moment. And I mean, I didn't think getting the PC version later would be a scam. You know, for me, a scam is something like vaporware, like a product that never existed or never came to light. In this case, it was actually an announced 6 years delay, kind of.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad I didn't ask for a refund because it was added to my Steam account. For those people who got a license, who can prove that they purchased the game 6 years ago, I mean, you can basically go in your Steam account and look in your purchase history, and then you can see which games you bought in 2016, 2017, and you can send a screenshot with the proof and fill out a Google form, in case the game wasn't automatically added to your Steam library, and then you would get a Steam code in that case.
All right.
So we will link to that. It's actually quite nice. I played the game already. It's more action driven, and I have to admit, it's such a nice thing. I guess you have heard of it, the latest FC soccer from EA, and the latest eFootball from Konami. Both games had horrible negative reviews by gamers and press sorry and press alike. So it's good to have another football game / soccer game by one of the pioneers from the genre, and not only the big guys, EA and Konami. Yeah. So if that is something for you, if you're after more an arcadey soccer game, then Sociable Soccer 24 might be for you. All right. Another game that was released recently that I totally passed by my radar was Wrestle Quest by Mega Cat Studios. Mega Cat Studios was actually known for some years ago. They made some NES cartridge games, some new ones. And the interesting thing about Wrestle Quest is actually it's more like an action wrestling game from the 8-bit era. So it plays more. It's supposed to be more like a C64 or I don't know, old DOS PC pixel game, more action driven, not for realism. It's 2D. We will link to that, of course. Yeah. Yes, and so, and another news is that's a follow-up from the news we had the last time. Now that Threads finally released on the EU, the European Union, we actually are on Threads as well. So if you go to threads.net/@sceneworld64, you can find us there. And also myself at Nefcom. And I guess you also have...
I don't have it yet, but probably I will dive into it. I'm a bit I think there's too much social media out there.
Right. Yeah. First there was Mastodon, then there was Blue Sky, and now there's Threads. We're also on Blue Sky, by the way.
I missed the MySpace. I missed the MySpace days somehow.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Blue Sky is actually I had a look, and 1/3 of our followers on Twitter are actually with an account on Blue Sky. So from the follower amount, Blue Sky is the most successful social media to this date. So the big second after Twitter, if you are talking about Twitter alternatives. I was actually surprised that so many people hopped on this social media, especially since it's invite only. You know? And of course now all the Germans are going on Threads, especially because you can go to Threads by just logging in with your Instagram account, so it's super easy. You don't even have to sign up. You just change the URL and sign in, and voila, you are a member of Threads. Yes, well, so, and last but not least, we have this news. We were informed by one of those large Twitter, I guess, news accounts for Sega news called Sega Hoarder, and he told us that a friend of him, her mother actually, unfortunately got cancer and made a fundraiser so she can afford the therapy. Now you would think, why would an European need a fundraiser? Because European countries have social health insurance. But here's the thing, that some therapies are not covered by health insurance if they are experimental, or if they are if they aren't above a certain percentage of success rates, I would say. So actually the fundraiser URL, I will just mention it here in case you don't want to click on it. It's actually fundraiser, so fundrazr.com/32JTJ7. That's a direct URL, and there you can fundraise. Perhaps you have some bucks you can spare, or you can spread around the news. I mean, we have Christmas coming up. Perhaps you have some coins loose to share.
All right.
Yes, and on this mark, I would say let's jump to Chris Hülsbeck and hear what he has to offer for this Christmas season. Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye. Today we have another guest, and it's actually a returning guest, because now we talk to Chris Hülsbeck. The last time, I think, was 7 years ago, when we spoke about your historical career. And today we actually want to talk about what you are doing currently, your current album releases and so on. So welcome back, Chris.
Yes,
nice to talk to you again.
Yes, hi. Nice to talk to you guys.
The first time with HJ, because in the last 3 times I interviewed Chris, HJ had no time each.
Yeah, I wasn't around.
Time. Exactly. But today we made it nice. So, actually, Chris, you presented to me some new albums at Gamescom this year. Perhaps let's talk about what you're doing currently and what you presented at Gamescom regarding your music.
Yeah, so of course, as usual, the absolute current projects I cannot talk much about because they haven't been announced, except for the the now almost decade-long project I'm doing with the Spanish company Mansion Games. That is has been announced. That's like a retro kind of shooter, Contra, Probotector style. That has been announced a while ago, and they're still at it. It's slow going. They're a small team, and I think they, it just takes them a long time. That was originally planned as an original Amiga game. But they quickly realized what their vision wasn't. They weren't able to put that into the Amiga hardware and get that properly done. So eventually, they made a demo on PC and they won some stipends from the government there and other things. And now they're making it actually for PlayStation, I think. That's awesome. That's the main thing, yeah. And that's called Operation High Jump. You find them on Twitter. They post updates there, or X, how it's called now.
Yeah,
Twitter.
Well, it's interesting because I remember back then I asked you if you would participate in new projects that were retro related. If you were asked, and you would said, "Yeah, totally." So it's nice to hear that you are part of that.
That's exactly up my alley. I mean, as we all have nostalgia about the old times, so that it worked well for me. And then I'm on a bunch of other projects right now. As I said, I couldn't talk about, but also last year I did 2 projects. One was actually a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. That was unfortunately for me just released on an Apple Arcade. That's that's the subscription service from Apple. They apparently published this project and paid for it, so they wanted it exclusive for their platform. For people who have Apple Arcade, check it out. It's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. And I made the music for that completely. And pretty cool, though, to have that franchise on my resume now.
Yeah. Which is interesting because originally, at least for the coin app, Jeroen Tel was the one that did the soundtrack for the C64 version. So for the home console, for the home computers. So it's surprising that they didn't ask him, to be honest.
Well, one of the guys that founded that company that made it, I worked with him at Factor 5.
So connections.
In the US. So nice. It was and enjoyed it very much, and it turned out great. Unfortunately, that's one of those projects where I don't know if I can ever release a soundtrack because it's due to American law and stuff. They own it all, and so I don't know if they're interested to put out a soundtrack or not. But I keep asking them. So that's that. And then, of course, the other project, which was also one of the albums for Gamescom, Tiny Tor, which has also been a longer project that I worked on together with my friend Fabian Del Priore. And it's very much reminded me of like working maybe on a Jana Sisters or something. It's of course has some more modern game elements too, but it's very much also like a retro jump and run game, and it's been well received. Actually, it was also originally planned as an indie game, but then eventually it became so good that it found a publisher, and so it got a proper release, I think like just shortly before Gamescom. And then I created the soundtrack CD for it, and online, of course, Bandcamp and stuff like that. And that was also well received. The soundtrack got pretty good feedback.
Awesome.
So I was happy about that.
Well, as you mentioned Turtles, let me ask you, how did it feel for you to know that you're working on a franchise where Jeroen Tel was actually doing the home computer conversions of the music? I mean, Jeroen Tel has a special style of music. I mean, he's doing a lot of multiplexing with instruments and stuff, at least back then in the 80s, 90s. Did you actually approach some similar style, or did you do it your own Chris Hülsbeck style, kind of?
No, I wasn't really even aware of that version. And there's so many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games out there. I mean, like, I think that's one of those franchises where, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like 50 different games out there. I went more like I rewatched a lot of episodes of the different TV animated series and stuff like that, and I got a little bit more inspired by that. But I also wanted to, of course, put my own style to the franchise, because there were definitely a lot of differences between the different TV shows as well.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that was very challenging on that project is that it was fully depending on the gameplay. So it was interactive, the score, and after I composed the music, I had to cut it up into many little pieces that could loop on their own and be connected in certain ways and stuff. So that was quite a challenge, but I think it turned out really well. So that would be a little bit of a challenge too if you would make a soundtrack album, because then you would have to kind of rearrange those pieces to make like soundtrack tracks.
Right.
But yeah, that was challenging and fun at the same time.
Awesome. I remember the first time we spoke about your historical achievements. I asked you if you had one open wish in your career, and you said you would like to make a movie soundtrack like Hans Zimmer. Did that actually happen meanwhile?
No, it has not. But I have. Yeah, no. I'm still waiting for that fan that becomes a director and wants my music in the movie. But on the other hand, I also took up I've been dabbling in videography and photo stuff and things. And now I'm thinking like maybe I want to make my own short film at some point, and then compose my own music to it. I already did some experiments that I didn't want to publish yet, but that is something that I'm actively working on. So.
I mean, doing something new is not very uncommon for you. Just reminds about To Be On Top, which was your first own created computer game. So why not?
Yeah, exactly. And that was an interesting concept, by the way. That was basically somewhat semi-autobiographical, if you will, because the protagonist in the game was kind of modeled after my life to a certain extent, with lots of creative freedom, of course. But the idea behind that game was that you would create your own music within the game, and then have it like rise in the charts and become like a pop hit, and even that then the piece that you created could be in the high score list, which I called the top 10. It's like a music charts kind of thing. That was fun. Yeah. It was still sad that some of the game elements were not as good as they could have been. I was very new to game development at the time, but the music turned out very well, of course.
I mean, that is what you are known for, your creativity in music. But I wonder, I mean, back to your wish of making a score for a movie, isn't it like wouldn't you run into open doors? I mean, now that even companies like Disney go back into game development. I mean, see, we had Ron Gilbert on the show who said he would never do ever a new Monkey Island, and then Disney allowed him to do it. So you could say, hey, I'm one of the biggest video game musicians. I'm Chris Hülsbeck. Book me for your new game project or something.
Well, thank you for that. But to be honest, I mean, if you look at like how Hollywood operates, I tried to get a little bit in there during my time at Factor 5. I visited Hollywood a few times, and I had a few connections as well. And I looked at the whole industry of movie composers, movie soundtracks, all that stuff, and I got kind of discouraged pretty quick because it's really a situation where you maybe have like 3,000 composers in the Hollywood area that are absolute top notch. They're fantastic composers, and most of them have to like work other jobs just to get by.
Right.
Then maybe like 300 of them can live off their craft, of their composing, and then 30 get the big jobs. You know, the Hans Zimmers and stuff. That's really an enormous amount of people who are competing there. And then I actually visited the Hans Zimmer studios twice, and got like the tour and stuff. Unfortunately, I never met Hans Zimmer personally there, but I got the studio tour, and I saw all the aspiring composers there toiling away in like almost dungeon-like studios.
Ooh. Yeah.
It was very depressing to see that.
Okay.
So, and of course, I mean, I had my job at Factor 5. I couldn't just like drop everything and try to build a new career. So I figured, okay, this is not quite for me that way. I still think if a fan someday comes and they're making a big movie and they want my music, I'm totally on board. I'm ready, but I won't try to get my foot in the door the classic way, because it's just it didn't seem the right path for me. On the other hand, and this maybe brings me to the second album I brought to Gamescom, which is from my Patreon project. And I think we talked briefly about this in the past. It's become actually quite big for me and quite important, because it's music I make for the fans directly. Mm-hmm. And they support me through Patreon with a few dollars each month. But it's a larger number of fans, so it's a significant income stream for me. And I create one new music piece there every month, and it's I made the decision a long time ago to make all those pieces royalty free. So I have now around 80 music pieces there, and they are all like, they can be used by any fan on YouTube, or even in indie games or whatever they like. Royalty free, as long as they support me on Patreon or buy one of my royalty free albums. They have essentially a almost blanket license to use the track as they see fit. And and from time to time I release albums, of course, on Bandcamp, and they also appear now one by one on Spotify. I found a way to finally get them onto the streaming services without having them appear on the YouTube Content ID.
Yeah, that was a big problem. I remember when we did the Frankfurt Film Museum, it was a real struggle to convince them that you gave me permission to release the video of the interview.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with the Patreon music pieces that are royalty free, they are not even in the system on YouTube. So they won't you won't get a claim there or anything. Awesome. So I do albums from time to time, and then 2 years ago at Amiga 37, I made the decision to try again to release a new album. and that was Lucid Dreaming, which was a best of the Patreon project pieces. And finally, after like almost 16 years of not releasing a CD album on its own, I mean, I did like the Kickstarter projects with the Turrican anthology, and then the orchestral recordings. There, of course, we made CDs for those, but they were essentially like supported by the Kickstarter backers, and essentially like a pre-order, so it was safe to make a CD. But for the Lucid Dreaming, that was really an experiment. Could I bring an album to one of these events and recoup the production costs? And it worked. And so thanks for the fans to support me and buy those albums, because that actually encouraged me to think about Gamescom and Amiga 38 this year. And I decided to actually make 2 albums. One was Tiny Thor, of course, the soundtrack, and then another Patreon album, which is called Dress to Chill, because it's a little bit more relaxed music on there.
Right.
So thought that was a fitting title, and they both also recouped their production costs. So thank you very much. Okay. We still have a lot of them. I have a new partner now in Germany called Black Screen Records, and they are doing my shop from now on.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons, first off, they're very cool people, and they specialize in game music and vinyl recordings and other things. And I met them 2 years ago at Gamescom, and had like an immediate connection with them. And also from this year on, I think it started in January, a new law came into effect with the Mehrwertsteuer, the value-added tax,
right,
that you have to now charge and also pay in Europe for anything that gets ordered by a European. Yeah. And that creates a huge problem for me sitting in the US here and organizing all that. So I didn't want to deal with that anymore. And since Black Screen Records have their own shop and they're dealing with that stuff all the time anyway, I figured let them do all the distribution and they just pay me a royalty, and then I don't have to worry about those tax situations. Yeah.
In Germany, it was even earlier. It started July 1st, 2021. And the thing is that when the IOSS, the electronic pre-chargement, when the marking on the address label is missing, the government, the customs, don't refund you. They just keep the double money.
That's
because
great.
I tried
That's
many
nice
times, and they're like, if the marking on the address label is missing that you already paid, bad luck, ask the sender to refund you.
Exactly. So it just became like too much of a trouble. So now I have that all being taken care of by Black Screen Records, and I just receive a royalty check and
awesome.
So good partners that will their shop is already there. There's a few items there, and more will come online in the next few weeks, and then hopefully continue this, maybe make another album next year, maybe even vinyl. That's something like a collectible vinyl we were talking about. So things are in the works, and then I'm working on some other game projects, and so things are progressing.
That's actually what AJ and I talked privately about. You are branching out, doing a lot of other music, not just game soundtracks, which is a lot different from other old pioneering composers like Jeroen Tel, just to name one, who is like, no, I'm doing only music for games and nothing else. And I always appreciated that you say, okay, I make my own album, my own style of music, and not just rely on one thing and that's video game music.
Right. I mean, you have to remember when I started out composing music, I wanted to do synthesizer music like, Jean-Michel Jarre or Tangerine Dream, Kraftwerk, those things. Those were my idols as a teenager. And we talked about this, how I couldn't afford all the machinery and synthesizers and all that stuff. So the Commodore 64 gave me that outlet of composing music, and I wasn't even thinking about game music in the beginning. I just wanted to compose music for the music's sake, and then it became a career, and I'm absolutely thankful for that, and I enjoy doing game music as well. But my dream always has been to just be a composer, no matter how the music is, listened to or enjoyed. So, of course, I'm always looking for other things. I also have some collaborations and other things planned. So I'm not done yet. I'm not retiring. I'm trying new things, and I'm also. I mentioned on my social media that I'm planning to build a house. So the roaming around as a nomad is kind of like at the end now. And I bought some land in southern Arizona, and I'm in the process of figuring out how to build a house. I have plans already from an architect. I'm just scraping together the budget to get started to build.
Awesome. So you are settling yourself now.
Yes. Even though, I mean, I will keep the RV and still might travel around every now and then, but I want that fixed home base and have a studio again. That's another thing. So there will be a dedicated room in there for my music stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
And what you say brings up a good point that I've made a couple of times, in that, a lot of people will say, why still, why are you still using the C64 to do stuff? And in my, I do graphics on the thing. And to me, it's not, it's a tool. It's a tool that you use. And you mentioned, you wanted to do synthesizer stuff, but you didn't have the budget to put together, all the equipment, and the C64 became the tool that you used. And so in that respect, it doesn't become obsolete just because there's different tools available. It's still a tool that you use to do your particular, art form, whether that be graphics or music or whatever.
In fact, in the last few projects, I use C64 sounds in my music, even though it's done with modern equipment and plugins and all that. There are plugins that emulate the SID chip for music production. And there was a number of years ago, there was even an hardware maker that made a set-top box synthesizer with SID chips inside.
Oh yes, you mean the hard set?
SID station from Electron.
Exactly, SID station.
So it was like a MIDI box where you could connect the keyboard and then play the SID chip from a MIDI keyboard and those kind of things. So that tells you how enduring that sound is and how I still enjoy it to this day to incorporate in some of my modern tracks.
Right.
Absolutely.
We are still waiting for a tune for the Scene World magazine from you.
Oh, on the C64?
On the C64, yes. I mean, I got here Runtel to do one, so.
Okay. So let's talk about if I can do it with the SID emulation, then if you need it to play on a C64, then I might need help by somebody to transcribe it. My last time I worked on my tools was a few years back.
Okay.
For the Turrican orchestral selection, we made a bonus disc with original new Amiga sound, like a virtual Turrican 4 soundtrack. And then on this bonus disc, there were also some bonus pieces, and 2 of them were C64. One actually was transcribed by and reworked by Jason Page, and the other one I did and worked with the old TFMX tool. And yeah, okay. So that was crazy. It's I can't.
Jason Page is the one who also did the soundtrack of Hang On the Commodore 64.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was fun to work again with the C64, but it's a hassle. It's definitely not like I can sit down there and like a 20-year-old just hack away like I used to. It's very, very hard work.
Yeah.
But okay.
But let's talk about it. I mean, we are trying to keep the magazine on for a few more years, so you still have time, basically.
Okay.
That's nice.
I'll keep that in mind.
So, do you have any dreams still in the career now that you say you gave up your movie theme idea?
Well, I don't think basically. He gave it up. He just changed priority.
It's related to my other dream to do something, maybe create a short movie myself. And then of course I'll compose the music to my own movie. So I'm working towards that. And you have many venues right now, or these days you can upload your short movie to YouTube and have an audience there, and so that might be something fun to do. Or another thing would be to maybe do some documentary work.
Yeah, why not?
There is actually here in the town that I live in now, or I live outside of town, but this is my new home, is Bisbee, Arizona. They have this one street that is kind of like stuck in the 50s, 60s, that they preserve from that time frame, and it looks very cool. And there's people who want to restore that also, and I thought like, oh, that might be an option where I don't need like a script or actors. I can just interview the people that are living there and trying to preserve that street. And so yeah, some documentary work, short movie, that would be cool. More albums. One thing that the Patreon has really done is I could realize my dream of just making the music that I want to do without having to conform it to a game or something.
Right.
Nice.
So I've done a lot of every month I pick a different theme or something that I want to try out, and some of them were like, okay, this month I'm making a song that sounds a little bit like Tangerine Dream, and boom, there it is. It's been fun. It's been well received by the fans, and I can do all those things that I wanted to do as a teenager. So
awesome. Yeah, Patreon is opening a new world to many creators nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, wow. So you mentioned collaboration
and royalty and creating royalty-free music. So you're creating music that anyone can just use. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
It's really kind of providing a service, kind of.
An added bonus. Yeah, it's probably also the fairest deal in terms of royalty-free music that you can get, because you can just join the Patreon at like $1 or whatever, and then or €1, and then download all the pieces if you want to, and cancel next month. Well, of course, I would hope that fans would stay on and see what I come up with next month and support me that way. But that's like a very fair deal to then be able to use the music.
Chris Hülsbeck real life hack. You heard it here first. Yeah. I mean, if you could get a deal to get it listed in the music library from YouTube, that could be a big deal.
I actually inquired about that, but they did send me probably a boilerplate email back or something that they're currently not taking any submissions.
Right.
So I have a feeling it's another one of those things where you need like connections internally. Even though they say you can contact them, but nobody can make a decision. But if you know somebody, they might be able to make it happen. So, that's something that maybe if Black Screen Records becomes bigger over the years, maybe they can make a deal like that happen.
Right.
Or I have actually some other friends who do also music licensing for film and TV. So maybe they will have a foot in the door there at some point. Yeah, things like that are exciting, and there's still a lot to be done over the years, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, those big companies are always a hassle. I remember until we got our podcast listed on Spotify, we had to send out the same form like 6 times until they took us serious, So I totally get you here, But I mean, Chris Hülsbeck is a name, I mean, surely somebody from YouTube knows who you are, at some point.
Oh yeah.
You would think at least.
I would think, but they probably haven't seen that. So maybe if they follow you, they can contact me.
Well, hopefully.
I got like 80 music pieces ready to go.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Or you could ask people who are big YouTubers. I mean, those people usually have management connections to YouTube. I mean, like the 8-bit guy or Kronk for the German.
Who?
It's actually not a bad idea. But there's still a lot that I could try to get the music out there.
Yeah. Just for reference for AJ, Kronk is one of the biggest German gamer YouTubers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. German, not your language. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just my idea,
Oh yeah.
Nice. So, are there any plans for next year that you can talk about that aren't a secret?
Well, I kind of hinted that I want to do more stuff with Black Screen Records, of course, and we are already like looking what could we bring to Gamescom next year, and one of the ideas was to create another album and possibly a vinyl release as well for people who are collecting vinyl records, which is has really become a thing now. Who would have thought, like 15, 20 years ago, when the music industry was basically going down the drain for a while, it helped us indie artists, that whole thing was MP3s and all that. But I mean, at some point, like vinyl was so bad that the pressing plants were like nobody was even making the machines anymore. So when the demand was increasing again, they couldn't like keep up with making vinyls eventually. Like I remember, like just 2 or 3 years ago, you had to wait like for 6 months to get your vinyl pressed because they were so busy and they didn't have the capacities to do it anymore. And so I heard that now, because of the increased demand, there were actually a bunch of people who were making new tools and new pressing hardware. So it's gotten better.
And also, I heard that records, vinyls, they are called now, have problems like they have to be mastered very well, because at some frequencies, like a deep bass, you actually could happen that the needle is jumping out of the groove because of bad mastering.
Oh yeah, that's definitely its own kind of art form to get music mastered for vinyl. I actually, the mastering studio that I used a lot from my first CD and then over the years on many other projects is Paula Acoustics in Nordheim, and they always had like a special heart for vinyl, even when it was not in demand. They were still doing it, and they have one of the few. I think there's like only a handful machines that can do that direct metal mastering, where they actually cut the groove into a metal disc instead of a what's the usual that they use. I don't know what that exactly is, but normally it's being cut into a plastic of some sort, and then you make the I don't know what they're called, really. I'm not an expert on that, but before you press it, you have to transfer it. But because they're cutting the grooves into metal discs, the direct metal mastering, the quality is much better. But you still have to certain limitations when it comes to like frequencies and how close together how much music you can actually get on a vinyl, because the more music you want to fit on there, the closer you have to bring the grooves together. And as you said, like, it's not just jumping the needle on the bass. Bass needs wider grooves. So you cannot put as much music on there if you have heavy bass. So those are all considerations. It's really an art form. I'm always amazed when I visited them and seeing the machines and all that. It's quite amazing.
I actually just picked up a vinyl turntable the other day.
I would like to get one. I have a few vinyls saved from. I used to have quite a good record collection in the 80s, of course, and then CDs came out, and eventually they one by one vanished. But I kept a few, and then of course we did vinyl for our orchestral albums and other things. I would like to get one again, but I don't have room right now. That's what. Once I have that house built and my own studio, then I can have a record player again.
Yeah.
I wonder, did you consider going back into music cassettes, because that's the newest type? I mean,
I heard about that. Yeah, and I got myself a boombox like 2 years ago from eBay, a boombox that I used to have in the early 90s. I got it, and it had supposedly problems with the tape deck. And then when I got it and I cleaned it up and I fixed the speakers, they had delaminated and all that, I realized the seller didn't know what they were doing. It was like a double tape deck, one behind the other. And he complained that it couldn't like rewind the tape, but only one of the two slots was for rewinding. The other one was just for playback. So you could copy a tape from one to the other, so you didn't realize that. So there was nothing really wrong with the tape deck. It was functioning perfectly.
I love it.
So I was quite happy about that.
I actually got myself this year my first real Walkman, you know?
Really?
So hey. Yeah. And I was actually surprised to what detail some tapes are done. I mean, you probably all know Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And for the soundtrack music cassettes, they actually did the mastering like you would in the silent parts between the different songs. You would actually hear like faint old recordings. Like that,
like it's been recorded over.
Yeah, like it was recorded over many times, you know.
They did that on purpose, probably to make it more authentic,
Totally amazing. I was like, yes.
And there is something to be said about that, you know, like when you were recording on a high quality tape back in the day with a good tape deck, you were adding some kind of compression that the tape does by itself, you know, and it had like its own sound quality that is very difficult to replicate nowadays with like perfect digital recordings. So I don't know, I haven't thought about it directly. That's probably something I could discuss with Black Screen Records. I don't know if they done that. I think they have, and that might be another fun thing to do.
I mean,
I think that's part of the charm too of those old analog recordings, the tapes and the records and whatnot, is that everybody has, you know, I've told the story 1,000 times, but I used to have the Pink Floyd album, The Division Bell, on cassette. and it was a really badly made. It was a cheap cassette. Like it was like this really soft plastic. It was like, I think it was blue, and there was a part where my tape deck had eaten the cassette, had eaten the tape, and so there's a part in one of the songs that dips out. But that's how I listened to the song for years, because that's the cassette I had. Then I finally get it on CD, or I download it or whatever, and I'm like, every time, to this day, when I listen to this song, I wait for that dip in the audio, and it's not there, and it bothers me, because it's like, this is the way I listened to it for years. Like everyone has that individualized experience with it,
Yeah, so that might be interesting, because I would want it to be done like properly, though, so that you get like the best quality. Because nowadays, like most of the time when you buy a empty cassette now, for example, it's usually like a very cheaply made one.
Yeah.
So you would have to like really find a manufacturer that can make like a chrome or like probably chrome tape. That would be the most authentic.
Yeah.
Or you do it like the Guardians of the Galaxy and make it on purpose bad to mimic the 80s feeling. But interesting thing is, even limited run games started this year. Actually, 2 months ago, you can pre-order all the soundtracks from all Turtle arcade games, and I missed the pre-order window for the last 2 tapes, and then I figured that the printing company is actually in Cologne, Germany.
Oh yeah.
So I actually can get it cheaper from Germany and pre-order it from the pressing company directly than ordering it from the US, where it's shipped from Cologne to USA and then to USA to Mannheim, where I live.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So even in Germany, even in Cologne, there is a company that's specialized on tape mastering. Right. Pretty interesting. And it's not even very expensive. I think it's around 20 euros or something per album. It's pretty reasonable. I was surprised,
Tell that to somebody in the 90s, but it's pretty cool. I think there's still potential there. And it's fun. I grew up in the 80s. I love all that stuff. So,
true. Yeah, the only problem is there's only one company doing the cassettes mechanics anymore, and those quality is like meh.
Yeah, you really need like a classic tape deck, and hope that you can like repair it, because all the rubber belts inside usually have to be replaced, and things like that. But that comes with the territory.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey. Awesome. So hey, perhaps we have something for you.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Hey. I mean, you would already have a customer with me,
And the thing with tapes is, with CDs and vinyl, you have to have a certain number to make it worthwhile. But I think with tape, since they have to just like, they duplicated essentially with a row of tape decks in a thing. So you can probably just order 50 of them and not get like a much worse price than if you ordered 500. It's essentially the same amount of work for them to duplicate them. So I think there's something to that. And for the right collector, that would be something cool to bring. So I'll think about it for sure.
Awesome. Let us know. Let us know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they take less space than CDs and vinyls.
Oh, that's a good point. I still have my old tapes, so that's like over all the moves and downsizings and RV life. We had like a storage space near the old house. Now we have it all here, but the tapes survived. They were in a nice sealed plastic box, and they're still there. And when I got that boombox, I pulled out one of my old tapes, and it played perfectly. So it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Except if those tapes were stored inside the car and the sun was directly shining on it.
And then
the shells were bending.
You mean like mine?
And then the shells were bending, and then you would put it in your car radio, and it would be like a
That's that special authenticity there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes, I remember my grandfather cracking open the shells and changing the spools and putting it into an empty shell just to survive, just to make the tape survived, because it would be too expensive to buy the cassette new again, you know. So were good old times, you know.
Yeah.
Or gluing together ripped tapes, also very.
Yeah, that has happened to the past, of course.
Oh yeah. I used to be really good at that. You get the tape just right and get it on there and stuff, and splice together. You know.
Yeah. Actually, interesting that you mentioned it, because you said, Chris, that the quality of the tape is sometimes bad nowadays. Actually, when the Sugar Babes released their 20th anniversary, the Sugar Babes is a British pop group.
Okay.
And they when they released their 20th anniversary album on tape, I ordered it from their homepage. It was so bad that it didn't survive one playthrough, and I had to order a replacement. That was like, wow, that's really bad. You know?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't want that. So I would want like quality tape, like a chrome tape or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Hey. So now that you mentioned it a couple of times, where can people find your stuff, especially your new distribution partner?
Yeah.
For the album release and stuff.
Yeah, so they're called Black Screen Records, and you can find them on Google, of course. I mean, and if they have a search function in their website there, we type in Huelsbeck and then you find all the releases. I will also put a link on my website soon once the shop is complete with all the stuff. And my stuff, of course, is on Bandcamp. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. All those streaming platforms as well. And but for physical stuff, if you want any of the CDs that I made or anything else, you can find it at Black Screen Records.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I got one of your last ones from Rebel Assault, one of my favorite game soundtrack from the PC from '97.
That's the Extreme Assault. Yeah, that's a pretty cool one.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember you made a comment about it. Like, wow, you buy from me the oldest CD that I have with me. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah. There's still a few of those, and that was the first album I did with Fabian Del Priore as well.
Exactly.
As a collaborator. Yeah.
Interesting.
So from Extreme Assault to Tiny Thor.
Yeah. I mean, just for reference, Extreme Assault was the first game that required you to have an Pentium MMX. So I actually had to upgrade, as a teenager, I had to upgrade my computer so I could play the game. That was quite a hefty thing, you know. So all my pocket money went to the upgrade to play this game, and then I was like, wow, the soundtrack is cool, and then I was like, wow, Chris Hülsbeck. You know.
Nice.
So that was
thank you.
Yeah, well, all your efforts, you know. And I'm very glad that you went on to the show today to talk about the new stuff you are doing.
Yeah.
Because most interviews are about what you have been done in the past, and there are hundreds of those, you know.
Yeah. No, awesome. I'm still very much working on games and soundtracks and stuff like that. So I'm not only living in the past.
Awesome.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Until then, have a good one.
Awesome. Yes, bye.
Nice to meet AJ.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Finally.
Yeah.
Until then.
Bye.
Bye, Jörg. Bye.
Alrighty.